aims and objectives of research. Any research without objective is no research. Every research has to have its objective. Without objective, how can the research be undertaken? Because objectives give us direction, magnitude, and guidance to our research. The aims and objectives of the research are correlated with the type of research. That is, whether the research is explanatory research or exploratory research or formulative research or descriptive research or diagnostic research or hypothesis testing research, we have to identify our aims and objectives accordingly. So, the researcher has to look into the type of research which he is going to adopt. Broadly speaking, the objectives depend upon the goals, purposes, and the aims which have been set up or aims which have been given by the researcher or by the sponsors who are sponsoring the research. And these are academic goals, these are theoretical goals, these are pragmatic goals of research. The important aims of social research are to understand the functioning of the society. To understand the functioning of the society is of utmost importance, because if we have not understood the working of the society or the functioning of the society, so all the economic development or the economic progress or the scientific progress cannot be linked to the social requirement and social needs. So, it is very important that the functioning of the society is made to understand. That is one of the important aims of the social research. Then, to study the individual behavior and social action. An individual makes a family, families make society, societies make nations. So, we have to understand, we have to begin our understanding from the individual behavior and the social action. Again, we have to evaluate, assess the social problems and their effects on society and to find out possible solutions. We have to find out the issues of society, problems of society, and do the research. Suppose we are developing economically, but and also there is scientific and technological development, but the family is being getting broken, or the family life is not as smooth, and we know that the family make society. If the families are stable, society would also be stable, and the economic and scientific progress that we attain would be enjoyed very justifiably, optimally rather. Whereas if it is not so, then all our development progress can result into a result into nothing, no benefit to the society. Also, we have to explain the realities of the society, of the social life. What are the realities of society? What are the realities of the social life? The to develop theories, a social scientist or a scientist has to develop theories also. That is also among their objectives. The generally the objectives that are that have been mentioned and that are frequently discussed are the general goals, that is understanding for its own sake, theoretical goal, verification, falsification, modification or discovery of a theory or improvement upon a theory. There are pragmatic goals, that is solution of social problems. The social scientist has to look into why, despite economic development and technological progress, divorce is increasing. That is the issue which the social scientist has to make among their objectives, and how to solve this, because once to solve the problem we have to understand the problem. Without understanding the problem one cannot offer the solutions. Also there are political goals, that is the solution of social problems, evolution of programs, planning of reconstruction, empowerment and liberation. At times, the aims of social research are similar to the motives of social research. These motives can be intrinsic, that is related to the personal interests of the researcher. A researcher may be personally interested in some kind of issues. The motives can also be extrinsic, that is related to the interest of those who are sponsoring the research. The researcher, when because after all he is going through the literature, when he enters into various kind of issues and goes through the literature survey, then he finds that the certain issues become very close to his heart, and then he wants to do research upon that. So suppose somebody becomes very much interested in doing the research on the drug addiction because he or she has seen the limitations or the disadvantages or the troubling effects, damaging effects of the drug addiction from very close. So he or she wants to work on this topic. So this it would be called intrinsic motive. Whereas some motives are extrinsic, we want to do research, but we find that there are sponsors who want to utilize our services, utilize our expertise for researching issues which are close to them. Suppose Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry, they are sponsoring a research. So it is natural that they would be urging the researcher to whom they are sponsoring to work on some economic issues which are utmost important to the sponsors. So it is called the extrinsic. Many times there are ministries who sponsor the researches, and of course it depends upon the priority of the ministry, what kind of problem they want to be researched upon by the researcher to whom they are sponsoring. So that is the motive. Further, there could be educational motive, that is to educate and inform the public. There could be personal, to improve and increase the academic status of the researcher himself or herself, because if a researcher does a research on some issues and he or she wants to do this research, and if it is successful, then it can enhance their credibility in the academic market and it could give them an academic status. There could be institutional motives to enhance the research quantum of the institutions for which the researcher works. We, the teachers, are employed by the universities, and universities are being ranked now. Their performance is being assessed now. How much teachers have published and of what quality matters very much for the institution, because the institutions would give positive credits, would get benefit in their accreditation and in their assessment from the assessing bodies, ranking bodies, and this is why the institutions, they motivate, they urge and they request the faculty members or researchers to increase the quantity of research also and improve the quality of research also. So that is institutional motive. Political, that is to motive, that is to provide support to political plans and programs. Government, any government, they adopt policies, and once they implement these policies, they in fact get an assessment of it, get an accounting of it, so that to see that whether these programs are working positively or not. If they find that the programs are generating positive interest in the people and appreciation for this policy, they continue it. And if they find that it is harming the people, disturbing the people, and people are getting critical, so they abandon this. That is the political motive. Then tactical. What is tactical? Tactical, to delay a decision or action as long as the investigation is underway. So this could be also one motive, that let the issue be researched upon and we would finalize what action has to be taken. That is also one motive. Further, the research is to discover answers to questions through application of scientific and systematic procedures. So, each research has its unique purpose. We cannot classify, or we cannot rather conglomerate all the research in one category. No, every research is done by unique purpose. An agriculture scientist, he is working to increase the productivity, to increase the production of the food commodities, so that the food is available to all the citizens of the country in adequate quantities. A medical doctor, a medical researcher is researching to find out new medicines for the diseases for which either there are no medicines, or if there are medicines, they want to improve upon it. A social scientist also has his own motive, because after all the developments, scientific development, technological development, medical development, it is for whom? It is for the society. So the social scientist has an important role to study the implementation of these scientific policies, so that the society gives the optimum benefit of those researches. So we were discussing that the the objectives of the researches are set up according to the type of research that we are pursuing. So, broadly, we are going to discuss these objectives under the broad categories of the research. So, the research, if the research is exploratory or formulative, then the issue is to get the familiarity with the phenomenon or to achieve new insights into it. The objectives would be set up accordingly. For example, all the inquiry commissions, all the FIRs, first information reports with the police stations, or the inquiries, commission of inquiry commissions, they are to get familiarity with the phenomenon or to get the new insights. So, if suppose there is some flood, big flood, so flood has happened, it has taken place, but the government should institute an inquiry to know what happened, how it happened, so that they can recommend for the further action, so that next time this flood does not become devastative and life and property of the people are saved from destruction. There are other examples. Suppose some crime has happened and the first information report has been written. There is an inquiry officer. The job of the inquiry officer is to find what has happened, who has done it, to find the various insights and aspects of the phenomenon, so that the one who has done this criminal act is punished also, and the other people are discouraged from it. Now comes the descriptive. If the research is descriptive, then the purpose is to portray accurately the characteristics of a particular individual, situation, or a group. The objectives have to set up accordingly. So, suppose we are working on the WTO, World Trade Organization. It is a descriptive kind of research. We have to know the functioning or dysfunctioning of this organization, or malfunctioning of this organization, or if it has functioned very well, that also. Then what we do, it is a descriptive kind of research. We set up objectives accordingly. What were the factors that this organization was formed? What were motives of its formation? What were its plan? And all those kind of objectives which we think appropriate has to be set up for the descriptive study. Or if suppose we are studying the a say suppose divorce in the society or poverty in the society or any kind of such issues, then we have to set up the objectives accordingly, because it is a descriptive study, and in this we study the characteristics of the individual, organization or society. Suppose United Nations Security Council, UNSC, it is very important, crucial organization of UNO. If we are going to study this organization to find its characteristics, its working, its performance, it is a descriptive type of study. And in this study, we will be setting up our aims and objectives accordingly. Why it was set up? Why it was initially made a veto was given? Why permanent security? How veto has been utilized? Why permanent seats to some countries and not to other countries? How this veto has been utilized for the weak countries or the strong countries? These are the aims and objectives of the descriptive research, where we study the characteristics of the individual, organization or any International Monetary Fund, World Bank. If we want to study them, it is again a descriptive kind of study, and we can set up aims and our objectives of research on IMF or World Bank accordingly. I hope it is clear. Then the next is the diagnostic research. In the diagnostic research, what we do? The research is done to determine the frequency with which something occurs or its association. The objectives have to be set up accordingly. Suppose in Aligarh, we have very high frequency of malaria. Now dengue also. Why this malaria in Aligarh? Again and again, every year, it is happening again and again. Is it because of the climate? Is it because of the cleanliness or lack of cleanliness? Or due to lack of knowledge about the disease? So, we have to set up the objectives accordingly. To study the frequent instances of malaria in Aligarh, to find the factors which in fact create or generate malaria in Aligarh frequently. What could be the possible solutions or whether these solutions have been undertaken or not. These are the objectives of a study if we are studying the malaria in Aligarh, which is a diagnostic research. Then the final or the fourth type is the hypothesis testing research. In hypothesis testing research, we test a hypothesis for causal relationship between variables. So the objectives have to be decided accordingly. We will give small examples for it. Suppose we want to study the inflow of remittances from Gulf countries to India, then we set up the hypothesis to find the causal relations. There is an independent variable, that is the flow of remittances, whereas the dependent variable which is flow of remittances to the country, whereas there are independent variables which could be the number of migrants, which could be the exchange rate vis-a-vis those countries, which could be the permission for families, for the workers to stay with them. These are some independent factors which influence the flow of remittances to our country from the Gulf countries. We have to do the hypothesis testing. We have to collect the data and then analyze it through the statistical applications and then find that which of these variables impact how much the remittance inflow to the country. So we set up the objectives accordingly to find the relation between the remittance, size of remittance, and the size of expatriate workers from India. Number 2, to find the second objective, to find any relation between the remittances and the foreign exchange vis-a-vis those countries. Number 3, to find the relation between the remittance inflow and the permission for the families to stay with the worker, because if the worker stays alone, then he sends all the money, nearly all the money that he earns, whereas if he is permitted to keep his family together in those countries, then he has to spend large substantial portion of his or her earning to the maintenance of the family in that country. So, whether we have to test the aim is objective is to test the relation between inflow of remittances and also to check the the whether they can keep their families together. Also, we want to test the relation between the size of remittances and also whether there is a scope for the acquisition of citizenship in those countries or not. These are the some of the objectives which we set up for the hypothesis testing research. So, we have already seen that what is the difference in setting up of the objectives which we do set up according to the type of researches that we have to handle. Further, when we decide on the topic, various research questions come to our mind. Those also help us in deciding our objective. Suppose we choose a topic, impact of digital technology and education, then we will have tens of questions in our mind. These questions also help us in formulating our objective. So, in finality, it is the type of the research which would dictate our setting up of the objectives. Without objective, there is no research. Every research has to have some or the other objective, otherwise it would lose its relevance. Thank you very much.